welcome back to another episode of ETAWO podcast. Everything always works out. I'm Alonzo, DJ Zobe, and I'm with my co-host.
Yep, what's up? It's me, Arthur, Pikachu 408, known to some people. What's up, everyone? Happy Friday.
Yeah, happy Friday. Man, it's a lot of things going on in the world since we last talked.
Yeah, last time we were talking, we were just talking about ourselves. Man, what's happening right now is freaking crazy. Man. You know, rest in peace.
The world is on fire.
Yeah, rest in peace to Floyd.
George Floyd, Ahmaud Arbery, Breonna Taylor, and all the people. There's so many other names and people, you know, that have fallen victim to police brutality. It's crazy that we have to like deal with this along with the virus that's going on right now, COVID-19. Yeah, it's like 2020 keeps on.
It just keeps getting worse and worse, you know.
Yeah.
We got the COVID, then they were saying like killer hornets or some shit's coming. You know,
yeah,
I'm telling you, it's all part of their little agenda. Their agenda, man. You know, and I'm just fucking with you. You know, they're like, all right, there's not enough, you know, 5G towers. You know, people are like, oh, or the people in the sky, you know, the Illuminati. They're like, all right, people are chilling out on the COVID. All right, race war. Let's incite that. Just kidding. No, I'm joking.
No, we're not.
I'm joking. Yeah, we're not all about that shit. Just joking.
Yeah,
that's some shit I saw on Twitter, dude.
Yeah, but yeah, speaking of Twitter, Twitter's where it's at, man. Like Twitter and TikTok, I've been noticing. Like, yeah, even TikTok's getting like more like newsworthy, or like because people are on the ground and there's all these different protests that are going on, you know, in Minneapolis, where you know where George Floyd was murdered by the cops there. Yeah, like even out here in the Bay Area, like San Jose, there's protests.
There's protests happening right now.
Right as we speak.
As we speak. Yeah, it's 11:07 p.m. where we're at right now.
Yeah, 11:07. Yeah, Oakland, protests over there, LA. Yeah, man, it's crazy. It's just it's hard to like decompress because there's so much going on. Like, you know.
So for the people who don't know what we're talking about, if you know, if they've been living under a rock, George Floyd was wrongfully killed by cops in Baltimore. If you just look up the video, you know, from one angle, it just looks like there's one cop putting a knee down on his neck, but there's actually another video with a different angle showing, I believe, three or two other cops with their knees.
3 cops.
Yeah,
I think it's 3.
Yeah, I think it's 3 other cops.
3 total. There's like 3 total, and then the 4th one was that Asian cop.
Yeah. They were holding him down, and for about 6 minutes, the main white cop that was having his knee on his neck was, you know, putting enough pressure where, you know, he couldn't breathe. And, you know, it's really sickening, you know, seeing the video and you hear George saying that, you know, I can't breathe. And
I want to see my mama, or something like that, screaming out for his mother.
Yeah, basically what the cop was doing was he's putting enough pressure on his neck where basically he's cutting, you know, air circulation, and it's basically like a choke that he's applying, and he just, you know, didn't let go. It's like if, for example, if I were to put Zobe in a chokehold, like a rear naked choke, and he tapped, but I don't let go.
Right. Just keep it going.
Just keep it going.
Pass out.
Which is fucked up, man.
Die.
Yeah.
Yeah. It was a hard. I mean, I first heard the news, like, and like I was like, I know the videos were circulating. I kind of avoided trying to watch it, and then finally I kind of like, you know, caved in and just watched it just to like see what's going on, you know, for information's sake, and it's just very disheartening. But yeah, I can't imagine
Did you
Like,
see it on
because
Twitter, or
right
you
now,
saw it on Instagram or YouTube? How did you see it? Facebook?
I saw it on. I think I saw it on. I saw it on Twitter, I believe.
Yeah, I saw it on
Yeah.
Twitter too. When it like first happened, I saw it circulating,
Hmm.
and I was like,
Yeah.
dude, what the fuck? That's fuck.
Hmm.
Like, I mean, every instance for all the people who've lost their lives is fucked up, but like for this one, I was
Right.
just
Like
like,
the
Jesus.
lady in
The
the
lady who got
lady in
shot.
Georgia. Yeah, she was asleep, and then they went into the wrong house basically, and then yeah, they shot her, and her boyfriend was there too. It was a whole mess there too.
Yeah, I mean,
And then
it's just it's sick, man. This stuff, this
mhm,
shit needs to like stop happening, man. Like,
right,
it's fucked up,
yeah,
and it's been happening for so long.
hmm yeah. Uh, it seems like within the last 10, 15 years or so,
Hmm.
it's gone. It's like this. We've always known something. At least like people on the other end, who have, the black community who have been afflicted by this, police brutality. Like this is known. Like this has been happening forever.
Hmm.
But it's just now within this time frame that we live in where everybody has a camera phone, and it's like being filmed. I mean, I think the first instance was like, if we're talking about historically, I would say, the Rodney King incident, where this wasn't a camera phone. This is like old school 90s, the big ass VHS camcorder type thing. And they caught these guys, beating up Rodney King, and then, they let those cops go. And that's what sparked, LA riots of 92. So from that time all the way till now it's like hundreds of incidents, like, and then there's something that happened out here in Hayward too, where a cop was like, I forget the individual's name, but he's out in Hayward. It's a
Hmm.
Latino man, something
Okay,
Cato,
I don't think I heard that one.
Cato. Yeah, it just happened very recently. Hayward, yeah, this individual, I think he got like punched by the cops or something. They like pulled up to his place.
Hmm.
Um, yeah, so I know there was some action, some protests going on over there too. So yeah, it's like it's hard enough that we're all like told to be shelter in place, and then on top of that, people say, if we do go outside, our safety, people's safety, certain communities, are put under more stress, basically.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I
Everybody's
mean,
everybody's got to look over their shoulder, or like, you know, for black and brown folks, it's like they got make sure they do things right, and they're not they don't do anything to make themselves look like a suspect or whatever, and try to avoid situations like this, and that's tough.
no, I
Like I
definitely
saw
agree.
this,
Yeah, I definitely
I saw
agree.
this funny meme, like, so like 2020, and it's like Mario, Super Mario,
Hmm.
and it's just a bunch of like the flaming spinning things.
I know what you're
So
talking about.
yeah, 2020 is like that right now.
It's
Everybody's
like when you're trying to jump. I can't remember exactly what they're called, but basically it's like little
right,
spinning thing where it's like a stick
right.
of flame balls, and like
It's like the hardest level of Mario.
yeah, and it's like you're trying to kill Bowser, and you're just it's tough.
Yeah,
But no, but
yeah.
speaking of where you're located, I'm surprised there hasn't been really any protests in San Francisco. I mean, at least that I haven't seen like heavily big groups on Twitter. And I don't
The
just get
only
all my news from
protest.
Twitter, but I mean it's pretty quick to get
Right.
what's happening with their protests in
Mhm.
which areas. Like in San Jose right now, they're in downtown San Jose. Um,
Right.
a large group of them were marching on to the 101
Hmm. I mean,
freeway.
so far, like inside San Francisco, the city,
Hmm.
I guess like the early days of shelter in place, there was a rent strike, and that was largely peaceful. People kept the social distance. It's like out in the Mission, people like laid down on the ground, spaced out, to kind of symbolize like death. You know,
Hmm.
like people. people getting like, evicted and things like that. So yeah, just the protest. But yeah, generally that was like pretty mild. Nothing like what we've been seeing the last couple of nights, you know. And then what else? Uh, there there was like a small contingency of those anti-lockdown people out in front of City
Jeez.
Hall. Yeah. But even within those two little situations, there was another protest. Forget the area, but basically it was around the rent strike. I think it was like a homeless, some kind of like squatters thing. Like they overtook like a empty house or something like that, and the cops showed up with the Blue Lives Matter stuff, and then basically like,
Blue Lives Matter, Jesus.
yeah, and then so that made the news, and then the police chief had to like disavow that like that action basically.
Dang.
But yeah, that was the most action we've had in the city in terms of protests.
Mm-hmm.
And then I don't know what's going to happen because apparently, I'm looking through my sources of activism and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
June 3rd, there's going to be a march from Mission High to the police station in the Mission, which is right next to the Elbow Room where we went to see Mongchi, the old Elbow Room.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I don't know what's gonna happen there. So it's out in the Mission. I've been kind of staying inside Chinatown and maybe a little bit of North Beach. I'm supporting the cause, and with Ahmaud Arbery and all the other individuals.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm gonna play it safe and stay inside.
Dude, like right now, have you seen this stuff happening in Atlanta?
Yeah. Or I saw something. There's like a whole some like city, look like a plaza or something, right? It's like a whole bunch of people in it protesting.
No, I'm talking about like the precinct that's on fire.
Oh, I haven't seen that one yet.
Right now.
It's like the news.
Yeah.
The news is happening so fast right now.
Like I'm looking right now. Like there's one of the precincts in Minneapolis. It's the firefighters finally arrived and they're escorted by the National Guard, dude.
Oh damn! I know they're in Chicago. I heard some protesters got into Trump Tower.
Mm-hmm. And then they have a curfew too by 8 p.m. and everything, but people aren't listening.
Yeah.
I mean, like Oakland's trending, San Jose, L.A.
L.A.
And I think I definitely think it's all warranted. And Killer Mike's trending too, man. I mean, it's just people are upset that people are looting and stuff, which I will say it's not right, but fuck Target, man. They're fine.
Right. I mean, I'm like, it's not my my stance has always been like, it's not my tactic to go do that kind of stuff, but I understand where that comes from.
Mm-hmm.
It's the rage, because so people have like done all, there's all these different protests and things in the past, and like trying to petition politicians and officials.
You've been to quite a few protests, being an activist and being
in the past. Yeah.
And like from your own experiences, like has there been times where it's gotten violent? I mean, what are your thoughts? Like, do you because most of the time, almost all the time it's peaceful, and then someone might have antagonized the police officers, or the police officers say fuck it, and they start attacking you guys. You know what I'm saying? Because I see,
personally have not experienced.
No, I
have not experienced that kind of activity. But I can see how like that can become a problem. Like I remember there was one action where I was not too far away from the Elbow Room police station. It was during the Frisco 5 when they were hunger striking to fire the old police chief, sir. And I mean, it was kind of touch and go, but it wasn't Oakland, I'll say that, because this is right around not too long not to the time frame, not far from that, there's like, protests over in Oakland, and that one went completely haywire. People are jumping on cars and all that kind of stuff. Yeah, like I have not been involved in anything like that, but I could see how that could quickly turn. And yeah, it's just when you have even, and then it's like it's hard to say. It's like because once you're out there in the public, anything can happen, really.
Yeah, I mean,
So
like
yeah.
I've been seeing videos where like there's actually like undercover cops. They're wearing like white wristbands to let the other cops know that because
in New York,
there's undercover cops, inciting violence. I heard supposedly
Right.
like there's some guy wearing all black, looking really sketchy in Minneapolis, and he was the one who actually set the Target on fire, and he was smashing
Right.
windows in an AutoZone, I think, or O'Reilly's. So I mean,
AutoZone in Minneapolis, yeah.
yeah. So I was watching the Twitter videos
Which is
and they exposed
similar to Oakland.
and they exposed that
Yeah.
white guy who was doing it, who is a cop.
Yeah.
So I mean,
Yeah.
it's not just like people are rioting.
Paranoid.
I don't
Yeah.
even really think it's people rioting. I think it's a rebellion. Because like
Mhm.
people are just fucking fed up. Like it needs to stop.
Right. Right.
Black Lives Matter.
Yes, indeed. Or yeah, it's hard to like me personally. It's not my tactic to do that kind of stuff, but I understand where it comes from, and I'm not gonna like, how do you say, dismiss those people, because I know there's a lot. I know, like, I just saw something about Killer Mike, and people are going at him on that because he's had lyrics before that kind of like not necessarily promote like rioting or whatever, but it comes from anger, and I think maybe he could charge back to these critics and say, well, I was speaking from that perspective. I wasn't, it's art's subjective, and he could say I'm speaking in multiple different voices. But yeah, he's kind of like saying like don't loot and don't resort to violence and things of that nature. But it's hard. Like once it's like a spark, it's like a powder keg. Once something goes off, it just takes the one person. It could be an undercover cop, could be somebody within the protest or outside the protest. Who knows? But that one spark, then everybody's like, okay, now it's like like I remember back in the days when I used to be a graffiti writer, right? There's a rule, there's an unspoken rule in graffiti, like you don't tag where some place has not been tagged. Basically, like if it's like usually you would see with tagging, it's like usually it's like it may be like a mailbox or it's like a street sign or it's like some public wall or something like that, right? Not necessarily private property, but you do see it happening on private property because it took that one idiotic toy that just has a itchy finger to like spray or whatever tag. They do it, and now it opens the ground, and all these other taggers like, okay, this wall is open for business. So that's how this rioting stuff is happening. It's like it just takes that one action, and then everybody just like, oh, it's free for all now. Like the Target, boom. Like people, if you look at the people from the people that protest and then the people that are going in and looting, they don't look like the same groups of people. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean, like, I was just looking at Twitter the other day for all the crazy shit that was happening. Like, for example, like I sent you that crazy video of that white lady in a fucking wheelchair, and she was being racist. She was only trying to stab black and brown folks who were looting and letting the white people go.
Jennifer or something like that.
Yeah,
they call
Jennifer.
her.
Yeah, and then they were fucking
Jennifer.
Yeah, they sprayed her ass with fucking fire extinguisher.
Fire extinguisher. Yeah.
Dude, right now,
that was crazy.
Dude, bro, breaking news: they're looting one of the Targets in Oakland right now.
Oh dang.
Yeah.
Oh dang.
One of the DJs from 106 KMEL is tweeting about it right now.
Okay, 106 KMEO. Dang.
Yeah. Fucking
Whoa.
crazy. I just sent it to you on Twitter. But like
you mean okay, yeah, I see it.
yeah. But like, dude, holy shit, like I don't know. Like
Whoa, that's crazy.
you're an older person than me.
Uh-huh.
You saw what happened. With the L.A. riots, and
Right. I was a
you being a
kid, but I was
minority,
yeah.
growing up in the Bay Area. Like, what are your personal thoughts on what's been going on this whole time? The struggle for brown and black folks, especially black folks,
Hmm.
and
No, I'm like
what's
I'm
happening today with social media.
mhm. I think social media is just like, putting an eye on it, like just, giving us all these updates. Like everybody's got their camera phone, and then the news media have their cameras on. So we're all just like hyper vigilant right now, you know?
Hmm.
So the tensions are high. It's like, um, yeah, compared to the 92, like there was some activity happening out here in the Bay Area, but it wasn't comparable to what happened in LA.
Okay.
Like LA was like the worst. Koreatown getting burnt to the ground is like how Minneapolis is right now, but Minneapolis looks like it's even crazier because they're starting to go into, like, you showed me that footage yesterday on Twitter. Like they broke into the police department, the police station, right?
Yeah.
And ran the police out. Like I was looking, I was like, how come the cop cars are coming out this way? I'm like, you're like, no, they're pushing the cops out of the precinct. I'm like, oh damn, and then the place is on fire. I'm like, whoa, that's yeah. That did not happen in the 90. I don't. Yeah, the 92 riots in L.A. The
Hmm.
cops were unscathed. So I would say the one thing different about the riots then and now is like this time around, I think the cops are getting a little bit of the action, the brunt of the force, which, I mean, me personally, tactically, if you're asking me tactically, that's where they should actually be. The people that are out there, if they're out there and they want to do something, they need to focus it on the cops and, those things. Um, because if you want to compare, because I know people have made this comparison, and it's an accurate comparison. I just want to add on to that comparison. The Michigan versus Minneapolis. The Michigan was with the lockdown, the shelter in place protesters. The people who are anti that, right? The what all mostly white males, with guns, and then they pushed themselves into city hall and threatened the mayor or governor or something like that, right?
Yeah.
And then you compare that to the Minneapolis, like strategically, right? They went for a seat of power, whereas in the Minneapolis, it's kind of like the rage is just going every which way. Businesses, police department. It's just kind of like sporadic compared to where the shelter in place. And I'm just saying, like, maybe, you know just to put. I mean, but then again, it's two different situations, because then in Minneapolis, the mayor is for the arrests of these individuals, these cops.
I mean, speaking on that, like
Hmm.
finally I think they arrested one
They
of them, right? The main guy that
they
was.
arrested the main guy, the one that was on the neck, the
Mhm.
one that basically, yeah.
I think
But
me
the other ones
personally, I feel
aren't.
like the three other people that weren't shown,
Hmm.
um, in the other like angle of the video,
Hmm.
they should be charged. The Asian dude too,
Yep.
man. Like, I mean,
Yeah.
you and me, we're both Asian, but hey, man, how could you stand there and
And
just
let it
and let
happen.
it happen? I mean,
Yeah.
because people's arguments are like, oh, he was just trained poorly, whatever. Where was his body cam on his chest? And
Yeah.
I call bullshit on oh, he needs more training, because
Hmm.
I saw on Twitter and other news outlets that
Hmm.
he had multiple reports and complaints about how the way he was being a police
Right.
officer,
Yeah.
and they should have gotten rid
Like
of
this
him.
is not the first time. Yeah. Like the him and the one that put the neck, the one that broke on
Hmm.
George's neck. Like they have multiple past incidents,
Hmm.
of violence.
I
Yeah.
mean, speaking of cops, I mean, like, shout out to my
Hmm.
boy Eric Koch. We were talking about it a little bit with him and Craig, and he was saying most of these cops are just people who are want to be have power, power trip,
Mm-hmm.
guys who were either losers in high school
Mm-hmm.
or just
Mm-hmm.
just pieces of shit. Now someone might be like, oh, Arthur, not all cops are bad, this and that, and you know
Mm-hmm.
what, I do agree with you, but at the same time, if these
Mm-hmm.
people are gonna have to have a gun and have all this power and supposed to be the people who we can call on to protect us, they need to be held accountable.
Mm-hmm.
They can't just be getting saved, because there's been too many times where these white cops have been acquitted, never got
Right.
charged,
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
get paid get put on like paid leave or whatever,
Mm-hmm.
and
Yeah.
like it's a bullshit.
Right. And
There's been
speaking of
so many,
Asian,
yeah,
like
there's been, yeah. No, you go
speaking
on.
of
What are you gonna say?
Asian, like the Asian cop, like it just reminds me like full circle is like Vincent Chin. I don't know if you have ever looked up on that incident, but it was like during the 80s. I forget the exact year, but it's like around the time of like there was like an economic recession, and then people were they're moving all the factory car work over to overseas, and so all these like white factory workers are hating on Japanese cars, and there was like a big thing. And then Vincent Chin, this, he was a young Asian American man. He was about to get married, and he had like a bachelor party as like a topless bar, something like that. In Detroit, I believe, or that part, yeah, Detroit. And basically bumped heads with these like auto workers, and they just start calling him like racial names, and then basically attacked him, and one of them had to steal like a pipe or something, and just basically killed him, bashed his head in.
Dang.
And basically they did not, it's like a father and son. Wow, very similar to the Ahmaud Arbery, the one that got
He
they
was
chased him
literally just
down.
jogging and they shot his ass, dude.
Right,
Like, what the
right.
fuck?
People are saying there's some similarities in that. I mean, in the Asian American circles, talking about how we can connect with black and Asian thing. Yeah, Vincent Chin, like very, like, and those two guys never served a day in jail. All they did was they got a slap on the wrist fine. That's it.
Fuck, dude.
And yeah, and people say that moment, that was one of like a pivotal moment in Asian American like activism.
Mm-hmm.
Like that woke a lot of people up to like start trying to participate. And I think right now it's like it's another pivotal moment. It's like we got to speak out, because
Everyone should
you know
speak out. Like, I like,
right.
I was on Twitter, right, and
Mm-hmm.
Instagram, and
Right.
I'm looking to. I'm not looking, but like
Mm-hmm.
I'm looking at my timeline, and obviously everyone follows content creators, I hate saying the word influencers, but people who have a lot of
Yeah.
followers on Twitter, right,
Right.
and you can see how some people are saying like, oh, I don't really want to talk about the subject, or I'm worried
Mm-hmm.
about losing followers,
Mm-hmm.
like, I'm not trying to say like other people are saying like, oh, I'm scared to post a, like Black Lives Matter, or like like, if
Right.
you obviously, if you go on Instagram or Twitter or anything, everything's about George Floyd. You know what I'm saying? Everything, what's happening.
Right.
Black Lives Matter. Fuck Donald
Right.
Trump. This and that.
Right.
And
Yeah.
you can. I mean, I'm pretty sure you've seen it too, where there's people who haven't said anything about it. And you know what? That's
Mm-hmm.
perfectly. I mean, I'm not saying it's perfectly fine, but hey, if you don't want to speak on the subject and you just want to stay quiet, then I
Yeah.
mean, you're the problem as well. But
Right.
that's your choice.
That's your
Because
choice.
like
Exactly.
I
Yeah.
saw like Timothy DeLaGhetto, he made a little
Mm-hmm.
lengthy post saying what he had to
He
say about the
has. Yeah.
situation. Um,
Mm-hmm.
I've seen some esports, because I follow esports a lot, and
Right.
and gamers, to see if any
They're,
of the streamers on Twitch will say anything, and
mm-hmm.
honestly, a lot of
It's
them
been
have.
quiet.
No, they've been
Oh,
saying
they
stuff.
have.
Ninja
Oh,
said. I
okay.
mean, Ninja's not on Twitch anymore, but he said something.
Mm-hmm.
Pokimane.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Quite a few people
Yeah.
have said stuff, and people who are in just competitive gaming, they've actually
Mm-hmm.
spoken up and said something. And there's a lot of, you can see. I mean, I think it's good to speak out and say your stuff on your social media, because then it'll weed out the people who are racist and the people who, are pieces of shit, and they unfollow you. Because I've
Right.
seen plenty of replies saying like, "Why are you posting this on your timeline? How's this relevant to fighting games? Or how is this
Right.
relevant to comedy? Like, stick to what you know, shit like that."
Mhm.
And like, to those people, fuck you, dude.
Right. I
Yeah,
mean,
like,
it's their
I mean,
platform. They get to use,
yeah.
and
I
speak
mean,
out if
if
they
you want to
want
be a
to.
shitty
So,
person and
mhm.
voice your opinion, saying like, "Oh, why are you posting
Mhm.
about Black Lives Matter? Just stick to doing this or that," or
Mhm.
fuck
Yeah.
you. You know.
Right. Yeah, that makes me like I remember I was talking to you about it that yesterday. I've been noticing like TikTok because
Mhm.
I'm on that platform, but I haven't made any content. I'm just
Mhm.
looking
Sure,
around.
Zobe.
I'm just looking at all the dance videos. But anyways, it's gotten increasingly more political lately. And then there's people, and I didn't know this about like there's people with the little Black Power fist icon on their profile,
Mhm.
like, and that's because a lot of the content that speaks about Black Lives Matter or about any of the injustice, police brutality they say have been like, not the, what's the word? It's like kind of like it's been uh not promoted well or whatever. Like they've been segregated or something like that. Like taken, like it doesn't go on to the For You page. Like you're less likely to see that content.
Mhm.
So then people decided to get around that is to put this like thing using these profile pics or whatever to show
Yeah.
solidarity. So yeah, even there, like people, they're trying to speak out, and that's okay. I mean, I don't know if, I mean, these are platforms and they just kind of like, that's what they are. They just allow us to speak, you know, some things people may not agree with, some things people do agree with, you know, um, which kind of brings up another point of contention of late. Trump, right? He made that tweet yesterday about the
Mhm.
Minneapolis.
Hey, when the looting starts, the shooting starts. You know how ridiculous that fucking tweet is? And then
It's
he tried to backpedal
dude.
today on a tweet, and like
Hmm.
the hypocrisy of him, saying like, you guys need to honor George Floyd. He wouldn't want this. Like, dude, shut the fuck
Hmm.
up. But at the same
Yeah.
time, like, jeez, like, it was really huge that Twitter, kind of censored his tweet, because
It,
he
he
is
never
inciting
has been censored.
he is inciting violence with that tweet.
Mhm. Right. And the tweet is actually like a old quote of something like a conservative politician back in the 50s or 60s said about the civil rights movement. Like when there were riots and protests back then, and he said that. And during that time, they
Mm-hmm.
didn't give a fuck, and they were just shooting and water hosing people and stuff. So he's like taking it back. He's using a reference from a time where it's like, brutality was at its height to another point in time where right now where we're seeing that as well. And yeah, I would say that definitely is inciting violence from
Mm-hmm.
police and anybody else, because right now what we haven't really seen too much of, and I'm not sure, but it's in the back of my mind is that somehow those shelter in place protester people, man, I hope they don't get in the mix of this thing. That's gonna be crazy. Then you're gonna have, man, it's just gonna be a shit show. Pardon my French,
Oh yeah, I
but
agree.
right. But we did see that. Remember, I showed you that, or you seen that video? The two white guys with the guns in front of that. I think it's like either Middle Eastern or Latin business, and they're like right by the target because one of them was like, "Oh, look, the target's on fire." The rednecks with the guns. So
Mm-hmm.
like I got to protect. I got to be out here. We walk by this business and they look like they need some help. So that's something I've been seeing from my end, looking through my like Asian whatever thing. I don't know if you know the account you've probably like, you know, one of those there's Asians never die. There's Asians with attitudes, like these quote unquote Asian American cultural accounts on Instagram and Twitter. But one of them, there's this new one that's been popping up called Jackfruit. And I don't know what the guy's real position is, because he seems to be posting a lot of like different things.
Okay.
But he did post one. So I don't know if you're familiar with this guy. This is Filipino activist from the Bay Area. Life of an Asian guy. Okay. I don't know if you're familiar with his postings, but he's one of those. I guess you could say like the stereotypical social justice warrior type, and there's a lot of people that don't like him because of that, and his content. I personally don't always agree, and like his recent post, like I'm like, I don't know. He was talking about like referring back to the '92 riots, like the rooftop Asians comment he's making. He's like, well, you gotta check your group. Like there's these so-called like rooftop Asian types in the Asian community who like, their anti-blackness is like, causing them to like go and buy guns, and like, like they're just using this as an excuse to go, to express their anti-blackness and something to that effect. But the Jackfruit guy screenshotted that comment and posted on his IG, and then all the comments were like all these other Asians opposed to that, and they're like, what do you mean, like, so we're not supposed to the most comments I've seen was like, what do you mean, so we're not allowed to defend ourselves, when they come and attack our businesses type of thing, so it's a catch-22.
I mean, what do you think? What are your thoughts on that? Like anti-blackness, Asians being racist. There is a history of Asian communities being racist towards African Americans and having prejudice.
I mean, that definitely exists, and that definitely needs. I think going forward, like from now on, like there needs to be a dialogue around that within the Asian American community with Black. Like with Black community, like we got to have that dialogue and try to sort that out, because right now there's this like an undercurrent right now. It's like we saw a little bit with it during the COVID, the shelter in place.
Speaking of COVID, there's been so much racism towards Asians.
Right.
I mean, firsthand about that situation. Which sucks, because I feel like, as a minority and, brown and black and yellow folks, we should stick together, you know what I'm saying? Like,
right.
In a perfect world, there wouldn't be any racist or prejudice towards each other's groups, you know what I'm saying?
Right, but I think it has to do a lot of...
There's a lot of history, though.
There's a lot of history, there's a lot of bad history that needs to be resolved, that needs to be unpacked. And now in terms of self-defense, I think even if you talk to someone, anybody Black, white, Latino, whatever, it's like if you put them in a situation, say you're the store owner now, and someone comes and try to do stuff to you, are you you're going to defend your property? And I think everybody would say, yeah, I would defend. So yeah, it's a hard place. Like, I agree with self-defense, but at the same time, I also understand all this history, of like anti-blackness in Asian community and all that. Like, it's tough.
It's definitely tough.
Yeah. But one thing I disagree with is the people that are thinking like, oh, I gotta get a gun because they equate, Black folks and criminal activity and stuff like that. Like, I disagree with that. Like,
100%.
If you are familiar with local news or anything like that, or maybe we've made national news, I don't know. I am a part of Chinatown Peace Coalition.
Okay.
Which is basically it's like a neighborhood watch.
Okay.
To say more or less. Yeah. And one of the things I stressed when I first met up with these individuals is we can't just look at every person who's Black and assume, or brown, and assume they're up to no good or they're about to do something. You have to observe the situation, everybody.
Mm-hmm.
And then from my experience, and they've, since it's been weeks now from their experience, they can see firsthand it's not just black, it's not just brown. It's basically anybody that's non-Asian
Mm-hmm.
that you see. I mean, I haven't seen another eight. Well, yeah. So far, me personally, I have not seen another Asian
Asian on
crime.
Asian crime.
No, I have not seen Asian crime yet. So I'm not ruling it out, but I have not
Mm-hmm.
seen that. But yeah, so you can't just assume that it's one particular group that's doing it, because right now we see in the news it's like white guys, white ladies,
Mm-hmm.
black, brown, Latino, all kinds of people that are like coming after Asian folks, attacking older, elderly people. So yeah, I always caution, like my stance is like, don't assume. You got to observe context. You know, yeah, de-escalation too. Like you like if I see somebody, like I think there was one interaction where this guy he took an orange from a grocery store. Me and somebody we were on the patrol, and like uh you know we didn't want to make a big situation out of it, so I said to him like, hey, you want the orange, huh? Like here, I'll just get it for you. So I took out some money and paid for it, and he's like, and he was thankful. He's like, I'm sorry. He said, I'm sorry, but I'm
Mm-hmm.
hungry and stuff like that. So you gotta have some like read the situation and don't always like escalate,
Mm-hmm.
which is something like if you think about like, I'm not law enforcement, I'm just a civilian, but and you see somebody, in like a law enforcement position or whatever, right? How, in these incidents, it's like it's so quick to escalate to this dangerous, action. Like
Yeah.
people need to like dial it back, have I mean, in the what is it? The George Floyd situation, like if you look at the camera angles, he was subdued.
Mm-hmm.
He was already cuffed. He was on the ground, like, and there's like four of them. Like, the situation was, there was no need to put their knee on his neck and do all of that. Like, it's just no need. But that guy, those guys decide to escalate, and then the one Asian cop decided not to do anything about it.
Mm-hmm.
Um, yeah, so um, yeah, it's a lot. It's a lot to unpack. I feel like this conversation, these conversations that we're having, we should have been having a long time ago. But everybody's gotta skirt around it,
Yeah, I mean, beat around the bush, you know.
right? Because we don't want to offend. But I think if we're able to have honest conversations and have space, yeah, which is
Mm-hmm.
something um, you know, I would like, to see more of, and maybe it starts some myself, um, yeah,
Yeah,
maybe something,
I definitely
yeah,
agree. You know, there should definitely be more discourse between everybody.
right,
Most people just ignore it and just like whatever.
hmm yeah,
But you know what? I think
yeah,
that's
because,
a great way to end our talk. I mean, you wanna
hmm
anything you want to add on to it? You know.
um, yeah, just maybe one little more point about like having all these like
Yeah, let's go.
cross cultural communication dialogue is something I heard on like Dumbfound's podcast with what is it, J.K. Chow, and the director of Bad Rap, and uh, what was it, the other Complex editor, forget his name, but anyways, they were saying in their conversation how like they've been noticing like there's a lot of echo chambers, like all these Asians talking about Asians, crimes against Asians,
Mm-hmm.
and then like kind of like skirting around police brutality, or some people are talking about it and then some people are ignoring it, or whatever. Like they should branch out of that and try to connect with other communities, black and brown, and have those conversations. See how just taking from them what they say and like kind of applying it to, you know, how we should move forward. Yeah.
Yeah, I 100% agree.
Yeah.
Yeah, thanks for tuning in, guys.
Mm-hmm.
If you didn't like what we were talking about, well, too bad. I mean,
Right.
obviously, this is not our podcast. It's not always going to be. We're not always going to be talking about this subject, but I felt like we
Right.
should have talked about it.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I wasn't really saying anything. It was mostly Alonzo, but I wanted to people to hear his input. He's someone that I look up to. He's older than me, and he's been through a lot. As an activist, and Zulu,
Mm-hmm.
and seeing what's been happening between
Mm-hmm.
yellow, brown, black folks and whites.
Yeah.
And at the
And
end of the day,
red. And red.
and red,
Can't forget the indigenous people.
yeah, all the colors, But
Yeah.
shout out my boy Dylan. Um, but
Wait. Why Dylan? What?
no,
Dylan's-
there's a buddy of mine who he's Native American. His name is Dylan.
Okay. Shouts out to Dylan, man.
But
Shouts out to Dylan.
but thank you for tuning in. We're gonna be way more consistent with our podcast, and any recommendations or concerns or any ideas that you'd like to hear. Maybe we could set up a Gmail for fan questions of
Yep.
people want to send in. But yeah, you can follow us at ETAWO, ETAWO, on Twitter, Instagram, and
Instagram's ETAWO podcast, right?
yeah, my bad.
Or,
It's
yeah.
ETAWO podcast on
IG.
IG, and Twitter as well.
ETAWO.
My bad, I'm messing it up. It's ETAWO podcast on Twitter and Instagram.
And
IG, and you can also see it if you want to listen to our previous episode, which is really long. It'll be on anchor.fm/ETAWO podcast.
Spotify.
We're on
You can find us on
Spotify. We're still waiting to
Yeah.
get approved for iTunes. We haven't been approved for iTunes yet, but
Yeah.
we're working on it. And yeah,
Yep.
thanks for tuning in.
All right.
Peace.
Thanks for tuning in. Everything always works
Yeah,
out.
everything else works out.